Carlyle Griffin is a singer, songwriter, and musician from Walterboro, but now she's taken her musical talents to Nashville. I talk one-on-one with the singer and songwriter and musician for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Carlyle Griffin, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. Needless to say, you are a pop folk singer, songwriter, and musician.
Yep, something along those lines.
Yes, ma'am. You're a Walterboro native.
I am.
But now you are a current Nashville resident.
Currently in Nashville, yes.
One of my favorite cities. Mm-hmm. I was just there in February. And I know, obviously, you're so busy with a whole lot of new music. So what's new, what's now with Carlyle Griffin music?
So I just released a single back in, I think, the end of April now, called Say So. And that was my third single. It's one I'm really, really proud of. I was able to put some horns on that track. I'm a huge fan of horns. I grew up listening to a lot of soul music and got into some jazz in college, so I'm a big fan of saxophones and trumpets and all that stuff, and really wanted to have a horn section on a song. So that dream sort of got to come true for me, and it was a really great experience in the studio for that one. I wrote the song pretty much in a stream of consciousness. And when I took it into the studio and we recorded the demo first, I didn't really like the way it sounded. The way it came back, the demo came back, just wasn't what I heard in my head. So my producer Joel Jorgensen and I got to do a little research and work on it a little. And I found a song by a band called Little Feet. It's a song called Spanish Moon. It's a very swanky, sort of groovy little tune, and I wanted something that sounded more like that. So we were able to kind of take the song and keep its original integrity, but change up the rhythm and stuff a little bit to make room for that horn section I wanted so bad. And the sound of the song came out better than I could have imagined. So I'm really, really proud of it.
And so, who are you now that you've done your third album and you're actually back in the studio?
I've definitely evolved as an artist, I believe, since the first song that I put out. The first song that I released was a few months after I moved to Nashville. And in between, I've had a lot of different experiences. I've been able to get in some rooms and co-write with some friends and learn how that sort of aspect works. Before I moved to Nashville, I had no idea what a co-write was. I'd never written a song with anybody else. I'd never even thought about writing a song with anybody else. It was just and still is a very personal experience for me. But right now I am working on a few more tracks and hoping to get back in the studio, I believe in August, to begin recording an acoustic EP. So I'll be doing a couple of more songs. That'll be more like an album than what I have been doing. I'm hoping to release, a few at the same time instead of just one at a time.
One at a time. So what got you from being a single artist to now co-writing with your friends?
It's really just the Nashville culture.
Yes.
It's such a huge thing in Nashville, and I don't think that's really something that is maybe done as much in other music communities. But like I said, I'd never really even heard the term until I moved to Nashville, and you hear it pop up all the time. People ask you, you want to ride or whatever, and so it was just something I felt that maybe I should learn how to do. And when I first moved there, of course, I didn't know anybody, and so I was writing kind of with people I had just met, which is really, really difficult because, like I said, for me, songwriting is super personal, and it can be hard to get to that personal level with a stranger. So now that I've been there for a while and I've been able to develop some relationships, it's become a lot easier for me to do that, just because now I'm writing with people that I know a lot better and find it easier to open up in those situations and get some really good songs out of it.
So what was your personal level before going to Nashville?
That's a great question. I think I've always had a good idea of sort of who I was at the core, but determining who I was as an artist is still a journey that I'm on right now. So the opportunity that Nashville gave me to grow as a person has been incredible. I moved there about 2 or 3 months after I graduated from college, and I knew one person when I moved. I didn't have a job. I really didn't know. I didn't know anything about the music industry other than I just wanted to give it a shot. So I kind of had to do everything on the fly. And when you grow up in a small town and you know everybody, and you go to school in a small town and you know pretty much everybody, it can be really frightening to move to a city where you don't know anyone. So I really had to start from the ground up, and that was an amazing experience just because I kind of got to figure out who I really was and who I wanted to be. You know, I could make that decision for the first time in my life because nobody knew me, so I could do whatever I wanted to, really. And yeah, it's just a great growth experience. I wish that experience for everyone because I think you become so much stronger. Just in your own wills and your own ideas, and you just, you know, things become less scary when you just start to get out there and do it for yourself.
So what wills and ideas do you have now that you're an established music artist?
Those change every day. I mean, the constant thing is just that this is what I feel passionate about, and this is what I'm going to continue to do until I feel like it's not what I'm supposed to be doing anymore. But, you know, I mean, I felt like when I graduated from school that if I didn't give music a try, I was always going to wonder what would have happened if I did. So that's, you know, just sort of the driving force of, like, I'm trying my best to give it a shot. And it can be difficult, you know, in that field because there's so many people, so many talented people trying to do the same thing. So you have to remember that the best thing you can offer and the best thing you can be is yourself. You know, your unique qualities is what makes you you, and that's what will set you apart from the rest of the crowd and the rest of the people that are trying to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. And it can be very easy to slip into that sort of thing where you're not copying other people, but you know, just sort of being like, oh, well, that's working for them, maybe it'll work for me. And that's rarely ever the case. So I think the best course of action that you can have is just to stay true to yourself, and it may take longer. You can't compare your story to anybody else's. Comparison is the thief of joy, they say, and it's very true. So I try to keep, you know, my head on straight and just keep my vision for myself and see where I want to go, and just figure out what journey it's going to take for me to get there.
So what does everybody in Nashville love to accomplish, and what do you want to accomplish?
Well, you know, I think a lot of people in Nashville are probably looking for that cut. You know, everybody wants that radio cut. They write for the radio. That's really common, and it's really cool, you know, to see that come to fruition. I've had a couple friends that's happened for, and it's really awesome. But I mean, I think everybody just wants to get to a level where they're playing for, you know, big crowds, and they're not doing anything else but music to support themselves. I mean, that's my goal. I just want to be able to do music and not have to do anything else and be able to live off that. And my favorite thing about music, really, other than the creation of it, is the performance of it. It's somewhere I've always felt at home was on the stage. So where I would love to go and be in a few years is just touring around and playing music for different people and meeting people, and that's really my goal. I just want to be able to do it and not have to do anything else.
So let me ask you this, Dan. What does your stage presence and performance do for the actual audience?
I think it depends on the night, you know, and music is really subjective to a lot of people. So I think in my experience, I've had numerous occasions where people have come up to me after a performance and have been like, you know, I really connected with that. Thank you so much for sharing. And this song made me feel this and reminded me of this. And like, I felt like you lived what I lived. And that is always, you know, just a beautiful compliment. It makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. But, you know, as a musician, you got to live with the fact that not everybody's always going to love what you're doing. But, I think, at least in my experience, if you go up there and you perform like I do, I perform like I'm supposed to be there, and I love what I'm doing because I do, that tends to translate, and people really enjoy it. And my goal is always to take, you know, whoever's at a show and sort of take whatever's on their mind off for a bit, give them a little bit of a reprieve and just some time to relax and enjoy what they're seeing. So that's always my goal. I don't know if it always happens, but that's what I'm always shooting for.
So, and I got so many other questions to ask you, but how has your music been able to heal, transform, and actually inspire people?
I think I write from a place of personal experience a lot, and people can typically tell when you do that. They can feel it, and I don't know. It's hard to explain. Sometimes I write really specifically. Sometimes it's more of a just overview of an idea. But I try to write in a way that I could be writing about a certain experience, but someone else could listen to it and it reminds them of something completely different, but still helps them, through that and helps them to understand it. So, like I said, I think music's subjective and people will take, the meanings into their own account and apply it to their own experiences in their life. And I think that's really important.
And so, as we sit here right now, you're from Walterboro.
I am.
You live in Nashville right now. Mm-hmm. What exactly is your personal experience?
Well, I grew up in a small town, and especially in a country field, that gives you a lot to work with there. And I think I've had, just experiences like anyone else has. I've experienced growing pains. I've experienced love and heartbreak and loss.
Wow.
And, I've been hurt and I've been happy and I've hurt others and I've tried to fix those things. So it's just general life experiences that I think everybody sort of goes through. Of course, everybody has things that happen specific to them, but I take what happens to me and write about it because that's all I can. I can't write about anything, else. I can from an outside perspective, but I don't really know, the inside of the story. So that's typically where I write from. Now, I've also been known to take some creative liberties and write stories that are just stories. Sometimes it can be fun, just to come up with something on the fly that maybe I don't really have any personal experience with, but it's just more of an exercise in creative writing than it is, a personal experience. And you have a lot of songs that do well that are just for fun. Yeah.
So, which one of your songs so far has been for fun?
Well, this one, I wrote one a couple of months ago, and I don't play it much anymore. I played it a bunch when I first wrote it, and it is just, I don't even know where it came from, the idea, but I wrote it about a man who falls in love with his hooker. Yeah, I don't know where that came from. I drive a lot back and forth to Nashville by myself, and I just have way too much time alone to think about things. So that was definitely one that I don't have any personal experience with because I'm not a man, for one, and I'm not even going to go into the other part of that. But, it's just an idea, and sometimes you just got to do ridiculous things like that to sort of take away, because I do a lot of times get so far into my head and write so seriously about my own stuff and take it so seriously, and it gets heavy, and I just every now and then have to kind of take a step back and just look at it from a bird's eye view and remind myself that I'm supposed to enjoy it. It's supposed to be fun, so it doesn't always have to be so difficult.
So what's the bird's eye view of Say So?
The bird's eye view of Say So, that one was inspired by a personal experience. I did kind of try to zone out and get the overview of that sort of situation too. I was in a place in my life that I was just sort of confused. I lost my direction a bit. I had a full-time job that I didn't love, and had come out of a very intense but very short relationship, and was also sort of questioning what the next step was for my music. And so that kind of all just poured out together, and so it's sort of just a conglomeration of all that was going on in my head at that time.
Wow. So what was the driving force behind getting to Say So?
I think it was just a desire to understand those feelings, to comprehend it, to sort of get through it. I find a lot of times that I think a lot. I'm an internal thinker. I don't think out loud a ton, so it gets really loud in here. And I find that if I write things down, and I can see it on the page. It's a lot easier for me to organize my thoughts. So if I ever do find that I'm just, consumed in thought and I've got too much swimming around in my brain, that if I sit down and try to write at least something, it tends to help my understanding, and it helps me sort of get through and move on from that. And it did help me, I think, a lot come to terms with the way that I was feeling in that particular point in my life. It certainly was healing, and to see all of that come out into something so beautiful that I'm really proud of, is a wonderful thing too.
Is music your healing?
Oh, for sure. It always has been. When I was younger, I always kind of felt, I hate to say the word misunderstood because that's so broad, but I don't know, I just kind of felt like it was me against the world for a while. And, I had a lot of friends and family that really cared about me and that I care about, but something inside, like I said, I'm always an internal thinker and I don't think out loud a lot, so I sit with my own thoughts, and that can make you feel misunderstood whether you are constantly surrounded by people or not. It can make you feel separate. So when I was younger, that music was a lot of the way that I got through that. I spent a lot of time in high school and college just driving around and listening to music and thinking, and I still do to this day. If I'm ever feeling stressed out or whatever, something along those lines, I'll take a little drive and listen to some songs, and that typically tends to calm me down a little.
So, how have you understood yourself as an artist better through other people's music?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that I found similarities within a lot of artists. I've found a lot of things that I like about them, a lot of different qualities, and I like a lot of different people, different genres. So I think that is, a strength of mine, that I take all of those different influences and sort of try to blend them together a little bit. I pull pieces from, from rock music, from folk music, from 80s pop, from jazz, from soul, like all of those things create who I am.
Wow. So how did you blend pop and folk with your Southern personality?
Oh. I don't know that my Southern personality comes out so much in my music. Okay. It's funny. I've played a couple times in Nashville and played my music, and mine's not, country really. So when I play on a stage with a bunch of country writers, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Oh. And I've had people come up to me afterwards and just, say hello and talk to me a bit, and they'll stop me in the middle of the conversation and go, I didn't hear that accent when you were talking on stage. Where are you from? I said, I'm from South Carolina. I know you can't tell, but just give me a minute. The more you point my accent out, the thicker it'll get, I promise you. But, when I was growing up, I don't think that country was the primary genre that I really listened to. I listened to a ton of soul. I listened to a lot of funk. I listened to a lot of Southern rock and folk rock and that sort of stuff. But country itself, as I got older, when I was younger maybe, like elementary and middle school, but once I started to develop my own taste, that very, very rarely crossed over into my playlist. Wow. So I think that's probably it. Like, I am very proud of, my hometown and where I come from. I love being from the South. I think it's, it gives you so much character, because there is so much character down here, and I wouldn't change that for the world. But, I live that every day. I've told somebody this before. I live that all the time. When I'm home, I'm hunting, I'm fishing, I'm drinking, I'm riding around on the ATVs or whatever. But I don't have to write about that all the time. Like, that is my life every day. I don't think I have to live in it on the page too.
So how do you separate your life from those pages?
Well, that's where the creative mind comes in, and your personal experience. You can kind of separate that from, the life that you live. You can put it in your mind wherever you want. It doesn't have to be here. It can be across the world. It can be, I don't know, in space. It doesn't matter. Like, your version of your experience is your version. You have to write it like you see it or how you want to see it. You know, it's a reflection of your own creation.
So how did you envision Say So?
Much the way it came out, actually. And that's what I was saying earlier, is when I wrote it, it was in a different rhythm, had a different chord progression. And I took it into the studio with my producer to cut the demo, and when we got it back, it sounded very, I don't know, it was like, I guess more country rock than I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be a little bit more soulful and a little bit more swanky. So that's where we kind of went back to the drawing board. And the funny thing about that song is now I can't even really play it on guitar like I could when I wrote it, because when we changed everything around, we really lost a lot of the guitar in that song. If you listen to it, you hear mostly piano and horns and bass. The guitar is really just one chord.
Yes, ma'am.
For the most part. So that is one thing that kind of hurts me, is I can't really play it out. But I think it's one of my, you know, best creations. And I know in Nashville, like a lot of people get stuck in this sort of thing that, well, if you can't play it in a writer's round, you shouldn't write it. But I think that's sort of not a small way to think about it, but it's just one avenue, you know, like there are so many different ways to do music and make music in this world. That shouldn't be the end all be all, you know, that should be the only way you can do it. And I'm still really proud of it, even though I won't be able to play it by myself, you know, with just being a guitar. But I was able to do it. I had a release party in Nashville for that song and did a release show, and got to do it with a full band, the full horn section and the keys, and when you do it in that atmosphere, you don't want to play it with just a guitar, because it's not the same, you know, it's an experience at that point. So, yeah, that's sort of how I got there with that one. That is exactly what I wanted, and I'm really proud of it.
So is your music heading towards more southern swanky, as you mentioned?
You know, I think so. I am starting to pull in my songwriting a bit more folk aspects too, which is something that I really love. I always have. I've been a huge fan of Joni Mitchell and James Taylor growing up, and now like Jason Isbell is a huge influence of mine. So I really love that stuff too, and I love the way that all of those artists are also so versatile, and the music that they create, you know, they never put themselves in a box. Sure, they might be folk, but they could be, you know, they could be rock, they could be country, they could be jazz. Joni Mitchell did an entire jazz album. So that's something, I never wanted to put myself in a box. I think that's really important, because I have so many influences and there are so many things that I would like to do. It's important to me that I can kind of keep that fluidity as I grow, because I don't think anybody really remains the same. You grow up and you find things that you like, and your ideas change and your thoughts change, and you should be able, as an artist, to change along with that.
So what creative liberties will allow you to stay outside of the box as a music artist?
I think I write in a way that sort of keeps me out there. I took a few jazz guitar lessons in college, and so I think I think that way, you know, a little bit more when I'm writing. I don't really stick in that same sort of 1-4-5 progression, and I don't really think about it that way. I don't think about writing music in a music theory sort of way. I just, if I play something and it sounds good, I'm going to do it. It might not be right on paper. I'm not going to have my old music theory professor look at it, but you know, if it sounds good to me, I think that's how I'm going to do it, and it's instinctual. I think you kind of have to trust your gut on that stuff, because not everybody's going to like it. But if you like it and you're passionate about it, then you gotta fight for it, and you gotta do what you want to do.
So what was your writing style before you started all of this, and what's your writing style now?
That's a great question too. When I was just starting out playing and writing, the first song I ever wrote that I can remember, I don't know if it was the first, but the one that I remember the most, I was in the 8th grade, and we had to read Gone with the Wind for our history class. And that's a big book. That's a commitment of a book. And I think I might have been the only student in the class that was like actually excited about it. I love to read. I always have. And so I wrote a song in the point of view of a girl who was going through some of the same things that Scarlett O'Hara went through in the book, and was like asking her for advice. So when I was younger and hadn't really had a lot of life experience like I've talked about, then I would write a lot of times about storylines I would see in books about characters, asking them questions and things like that. So I was writing more from that perspective, and as I've gotten older and I've been able to consume more music and experience more things and generate more ideas, now I write more from a personal standpoint, or just from ideas that pop into my head here and there. But I still do write. We'll pull ideas from books that I read, because I do read pretty frequently, or at least try to.
Sure.
And I think it's a shift, and I think that happens to a lot of people as you get older. When you're younger, they're ideas, and when you're older, they're experiences.
When was that shift in your music career?
Probably when I got to college. I think maybe a little bit in high school.
Yes, ma'am.
It might have started in high school, that sort of just transition over. But when you go to college and you get on your own for the first time, then things start to shift, in every aspect of your life. So yeah, I would say probably then.
And so how have your musical roots allowed you to explore new ground in pop and folk music?
I think just the range of different music that I was exposed to when I was younger, and has helped me sort of keep that open door to everything. Like I said, I've never put myself in a box. I never plan to. So it makes it a lot easier for me to pull aspects from this pop song or that folk song or this jazz song and make it into one thing.
Yeah.
I also did a lot of musical theater when I was a kid, so I have some of those influences too, and can tend to be a little bit dramatic. But yeah, I think it was the way I was raised. Like when I was young, we listened to everything. My dad's best friend, his name's Ted Felder. We would go to his family's beach house in summers, and he had these like huge sets of CD binders, like 6 or 7 of them, and he would flip through and pick CDs out and play them on the boombox and stuff. And I learned so much from him, and from sitting on that porch listening to songs in the summertime, and because he's like me, he's all over the place, and I think I probably got that from him. But yeah, just that expanse of genre and introduction to that as a kid has kept my mind really open as I've gotten older.
Wow. So what do you want to open your mind up to next musically?
That's a great question. I think right now I'm most focused on just continuing to develop my songwriting. Because like I said, I'm working on an acoustic EP right now. So, and in an acoustic song, the most important part I think is the lyrics, because that's what comes to the forefront. There's nothing in the background that's going to distract you from what is being said. So that's something I'm really, really focused on right now. I have been listening to a lot of Jason Isbell lately, and I'm a huge fan of his songwriting, and I've just sort of been studying him. And there's another girl, her name's Madison Cunningham, that I really am a fan of her songwriting and her stylistic stuff as well, that I've just sort of been studying and looking over and trying to figure out, how they do it, so that maybe I could figure out how I want to do it better. I think it's really important to continue to learn as you get older, and not stay stuck in whatever way that you have either been taught or just developed. I don't think I'm ever going to be the best that I could be. I think I'm always going to continue to strive to be the best, and that's just going to keep me going.
And so, learning from those particular music artists, what is translated from them to your music?
I think you can definitely hear some of the phrasing and the lyrical writing in what I've been creating lately. I still I keep it true to myself, and I don't want to copy them in any way. I just like to use it as sort of a template, because I like the way I really like how smart they are when they both write, and you know, I would love to be that smart one day in the writing and stuff. So you know, it's all a process.
Yes.
And you might not be able to hear it now. It might be 3 or 4 years down the road that you say, oh, now I see that. I see where she was getting that from. You know, it's not instantaneous. It never is. It's always a thing, and it's hard because you toe the line of, you know, having that influence, but also keeping your own integrity at the same time.
Wow.
So it's, you know, it's a difficult thing to do, but it's a fun process.
So where do you toe the line with your music?
I'm still just figuring out what is making me. And I think my producer likes to say, you know, you can kind of do whatever you want. What's going to tie it all together is you.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, comforting, as there are so many things that I would like to do.
Yes, ma'am.
But, you know, my voice is a singular voice. It's mine. It's nobody else's. And that's something that I really try to do, is not sound like anybody else. I want to sound like me when I sing. And I think that I do a good job of that, and that's something that I'm very aware of and want to keep on with. So I think, yeah, just staying true to myself and my voice, you know, as other influences come in and out, that's the top priority.
Singer, songwriter, musician, Carlyle Griffin, thank you for your time here on Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.